My wife was a mute. We'd been married for 3 years, and she'd never spoken a word to me, all because she suffered from severe selective mutism. Our daily conversations were all done through text. That all changed one night while I was watching TV. I heard my wife on a radio show, confessing her love to her first love. "Dylan," she said, "it's been 3 years since I last saw you. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I've missed your scent." Her voice, as gentle as flowing water, was something I hadn't heard in 3 years. I felt like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. A tight grip seized my chest, and I sat on the bed, stunned, for what felt like an eternity. I met Chloe Vanderbilt through an arranged marriage between our families. It was love at first sight for me, but she was always as cold as ice. When we first met, her mother explained, "Ethan, dear, please be patient with Chloe. She has selective mutism." I called her mother. "Ethan, dear," her voice came through the phone. "Why are you still awake so late?" A lump formed in my throat, and I was silent for a long time. The prolonged silence seemed to unnerve her mother. "What is it? Did Chloe do something to upset you? Did you know that Dylan Vance is back?" I was stunned. It turned out I was the only one who had been kept in the dark. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I wasn't completely honest with you 3 years ago," her mother continued. "Chloe's selective mutism began right after her ex-boyfriend, Dylan, left. I was desperate, so I forced her into these arranged meetings. It's pathetic, isn't it? The sole heiress of the Vanderbilt family, a mute. But don't you worry, Ethan. No matter what, I'll keep her in line." I don't remember how I hung up or how I survived that long, lonely night. Back then, I had researched everything I could about selective mutism and read that a common cause was a significant traumatic event. I didn't understand what that could have been, and though I tried asking various members of the Vanderbilt family, no one ever gave me a straight answer. I tried everything to help her: therapy, experimental treatments. I even took her to a comedy club. I would be roaring with laughter, but she would just sit there, silent and detached. When I proposed, it was as if she had to summon all her strength just to say a single word: yes. I was ecstatic at the time, but now the memory is just painful. Of course, I could never cure Chloe's selective mutism, because I wasn't her cure. A bitter feeling grew in my heart, followed by a creeping dread. Her cure was back, so where did that leave me? My hands, once limp, clenched into tight fists as a wave of defiance washed over me. If she didn't love me, why should I waste away in this marriage? She would never divorce me, so I would have to be the one to do it. I would set her free. My mind made up, I pulled myself together. 3 years ago, I had given up a medical residency in Boston for Chloe. Maybe it wasn't too late to start over. An hour later, I was out the door, heading to a nearby department store to buy myself some new clothes. "Sir, this is the last suit we have in this style. Would you like to purchase it?" the sales associate asked. I nodded and handed her my credit card. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but another gentleman has offered to pay more for it. Would you be willing to part with it?" I followed her gaze and saw a man in a navy suit, deep in conversation with a woman in red stilettos. I stood up and took a couple of steps forward, only to lock eyes with the woman. It was Chloe, and the man, I realized, must be Dylan. Chloe's expression immediately hardened. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She stared at me blankly, then tapped her phone with her index finger. I knew that gesture all too well. She wanted to text me. 3 iMessages popped up in quick succession, each one a deeper disappointment than the last. "What are you doing here? Are you following me? Why do you care?" Dylan squeezed Chloe's hand and smiled. "Chloe, who's this?" "A friend." He then took her hand and placed it over his heart. "Could you ask him to let me have the suit? You know, I just got back to the States and I need to build up my professional wardrobe." Chloe gave him a soft, gentle smile. She typed something on her phone, and without even a glance in my direction, handed her card to the associate to pay for the suit. "He's a friend," she said. Her voice sent a chill down my spine, raising goosebumps on my arms. I could barely keep my balance. 3 years of my life, and all I was to her was a friend. Suddenly, a light fixture overhead crackled. I instinctively looked up just as it came loose. There was a loud crash, followed by an excruciating pain in my back. In that same instant, I felt a warm wetness spreading across my shirt. I reached back with a trembling hand and brought it back covered in blood. The store erupted into chaos. Screams and the sound of people calling 911 filled the air. I managed to look up and saw Chloe kneeling next to Dylan, clutching his hand, her eyes darting around in a panic. "Someone call an ambulance," she yelled. I had never seen her so frantic. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we need to get this man to the hospital first. His injuries are critical and another ambulance is on its way," a paramedic said as they carefully lifted my semi-conscious body onto a stretcher. But Chloe, furious, blocked their path. "Save him first," she screamed. I felt a hard shove and was thrown from the stretcher onto the floor. The shock of pain brought me back to full consciousness just in time to watch Chloe carefully help Dylan onto the stretcher in my place. "Ma'am, he just has a sprained wrist. It's not life-threatening," the paramedic argued. "You're misusing emergency resources." "Dylan's hands are important," she retorted. "He's a surgeon." I was stunned. It was the longest sentence Chloe had spoken in 2 years, and not a single word of it was for me. I leaned against a clothing rack, gasping for breath. Each inhale sent a fresh wave of agony through my back. I couldn't tell what hurt more, my back or my heart. Hadn't I given up my own medical career for her? And now she thought Dylan's hands were more important? What did that make me? A bitter, mechanical smile formed on my lips. Right, just a friend. Eventually, the pain was too much and I passed out. The first thing I did when I woke up in the hospital was send Chloe a text. "I want a divorce." Just as I hit send, the door opened and Chloe walked in. She was carrying 2 shopping bags from the same designer store. She set them on the nightstand and sat in the chair beside my bed. She pulled out her phone, and I knew she'd seen my message, but her face remained a placid mask. A suffocating silence filled the room, broken only by the chime of my phone. It was a series of texts from Chloe. "You like that brand? I picked out a couple of shirts for you. When you get out of the hospital, I'll have a personal shopper from the brand come to the house. You can buy whatever you want. Dylan's a surgeon. His hands are his livelihood. That's why I was so frantic. Please don't be mad." I stared down at the screen, my vision blurring with tears as the messages kept coming. I finally broke. "You can talk to him, so why can't you talk to me? We're sitting right here, face to face, and you're still texting me? Are you doing this on purpose? Is this some kind of silent treatment?" I looked up at her, tears I hadn't shed in years streaming down my face, my voice choked with emotion. Chloe's expression remained as still as a frozen lake. After a long pause, she looked down and typed, "I'm sorry, I have selective mutism." Then, she pulled a document from her coat pocket and handed it to me, gesturing for me to sign. It was the deed to our house, a property transfer agreement. "This is for you," she typed, "as compensation." A sharp ring cut through the tension. Chloe's face tensed as she quickly answered her phone. I couldn't hear who was on the other end, but her response was immediate. "I'm on my way." I already knew who it was. Dylan. Without another moment of hesitation, I pulled out my phone and went to the court's e-filing portal. I filled out the divorce petition, entered our information, uploaded our marriage certificate and the property deed as proof of our separation, and checked the box to waive mediation. I felt a huge weight lift off my chest. The 30-day countdown had begun. A week later, I received a text from her. "County Recorder's Office, 3 p.m. to transfer the deed." I'd been in the hospital for a week, and that was the first I'd heard from her. No calls, no texts, no visits. I was getting used to being alone. I didn't get to the recorder's office until 3:30, but surprisingly, Chloe was already there waiting. She hated it when people were late, but her face showed no sign of impatience. A clerk from a private office greeted me as soon as I walked in. I noticed Chloe had even brought a bouquet of white roses and a small velvet jewelry box. The clerk moved to pull out a chair for me, but Chloe stopped him, indicating she would do it herself. I was taken aback. "You really don't have to do all this," I said. A faint smile played on her lips. She squeezed my hand, and with what seemed like immense effort, managed to say, "It's fine." This rare display of warmth and speech left me completely bewildered. The paperwork was done in minutes. "You can head home," she texted. "I have to go back to the office." A strange feeling stirred within me. I walked outside and hailed a cab, only to realize I'd left my briefcase inside. I had to go back. I saw Chloe still standing in the lobby, but now she was holding an even bigger bouquet of roses. Dylan walked in through the main entrance, and she rushed to meet him. They embraced, and he kissed her affectionately on the cheek. "Ms. Vanderbilt, right this way for the new property acquisition," another agent said. "You mentioned an estate in Lake Forest? Now that the downtown condo is no longer under your name, you're eligible to purchase another property." Chloe linked her arm through Dylan's, and the two of them, beaming with happiness, disappeared into a private office. It was the middle of July, but I had never felt so cold. A chill so deep I could barely stand, a cold sweat breaking out on my back and forehead. So that was it. I was the one being cast aside. "Mr. Miller, hello? Your wife, Miss Chloe Vanderbilt, did not respond to the divorce petition. We were able to reach her by phone, but she remained silent, which under state law is treated as a default agreement. The court has therefore processed your request. There is a 30-day cooling-off period during which you can withdraw the petition. Otherwise, the marriage will be legally dissolved. The court clerk's voice was flat and emotionless. This was probably the simplest case she'd handle all day. I took a deep breath, and though my hand was shaking, I managed to say, "I understand." I took a cab back to the condo and silently surveyed the space we had shared. Then I started packing Chloe's things. I wasn't going to be the one to move out. I was going to erase every trace of her from this place. "Package for Mr. Vanderbilt," a courier said after knocking. He handed me a single envelope. "That's not my name anymore," I said, taking the card. The courier looked confused for a second, then just gave an awkward smile. I opened the envelope. Inside was a greeting card with Chloe's handwriting. When I opened it, her voice, recorded, spilled out. "I miss you. I like you. I love you." Before I could even process it, a hand snatched the card away from me. I stumbled backward, nearly falling, and looked up to see Chloe standing there, her face a thundercloud. My phone lit up with a text from her. "Don't touch my things." Before I could reply, she had already turned and headed for the stairs. "Chloe, that's completely out of line," I yelled, my anger boiling over as I chased after her. "I wasn't snooping. What gives you the right to treat me with such disrespect? I don't give a damn about you and Dylan, but you have no right to humiliate me like this." A piercing screech of tires filled the air. I felt a sharp, violent impact in my side before I even saw the car. My body was thrown through the air, and I landed hard on the pavement with a sickening thud. I struggled to push myself up, and a face with a sharp jawline and dark sunglasses loomed over me. The man ground the heel of his polished leather shoe into my right hand, and a choked scream escaped my lips. As my vision blurred, the last thing I saw was Chloe running towards us, her cold mask replaced by sheer panic. She rushed past me, grabbing Dylan's hand to check if he was okay, sighing in relief when she saw he was fine. She never even glanced in my direction before I blacked out. "Mr. Miller, your SVIP status at Vanderbilt Medical has been revoked. I'm afraid we'll have to move you to a standard private room. Actually, I'm sorry, we've just confirmed there are no private rooms available. You may have to wait in the hallway for an operating room to open up. Also, the damage to your right hand is severe. You need surgery immediately, or you risk losing fine motor control permanently." The words shocked me out of my groggy state. I frantically tried to sit up, looking for my phone to call Chloe. The call went straight to a recorded message. "The number you have dialed is not available." A strangled sob escaped my throat. I hurled my phone against the wall, where it shattered with a loud crack. A network of sharp, agonizing pain pulsed from my right hand, consuming my every thought. "Mr. Miller, we've located Ms. Vanderbilt," a nurse told me later. "She's in a counseling session with Dr. Vance. She said he was traumatized by the event and has given strict orders not to be disturbed." I covered my face with my good hand, tears and blood mingling and soaking my sleeve. "I hate you," I whispered, the words tearing from my throat. "I hate you, Chloe. I hate you so much." I spent the night in the hallway, hooked up to a morphine drip, before they finally had an or for me. The pain, both physical and emotional, had left me numb. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller," the surgeon said afterward. "Because of the comminuted fractures and the delay in getting you into surgery, there was some muscle necrosis. It's unlikely you'll be able to lift anything heavy with this hand again." He gave me a sympathetic look. "I know you're a medical professional yourself, so you understand the implications. I'm afraid you won't be able to practice surgery again. Perhaps you should speak with Ms. Vanderbilt? The Vanderbilt family has connections to the best specialists in the world. Treatment overseas might offer some hope." I shook my head, staring at my heavily bandaged hand. I couldn't even make a fist. "Could you please get me a new phone?" I asked the nurse. "I need to file a police report." Before the words were even fully out of my mouth, the door was kicked open. It was Chloe. The hard, tense look on her face softened with a flicker of surprise when she saw me, covered in bandages and hooked up to N4. Her mouth opened, but again, no sound came out. She snatched a notepad and pen from the bedside table. "I didn't realize how badly you were hurt last night," she wrote. "I'll arrange for the best hand specialists in Europe to treat you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Don't bother. It's my hand. I'll take care of it." Chloe's brow furrowed, clearly displeased with my response. I was about to bring up the divorce again, but decided against it. It didn't matter anymore. She pulled a checkbook from her purse, scribbled a number, and tore out the check, placing it on the table. "This is to compensate you," she wrote. "Please don't blame Dylan." The sight of his name made me shake with uncontrollable rage. "Get out," I screamed. "I never want to see you again. I'm pressing charges, and I don't need your damn money." I snatched the check, ripped it in two, and threw the pieces at her. Chloe froze, stunned. She had never seen me lose my temper like that before. "I won't let you hurt Dylan," she finally said. The words were like a shard of glass in my heart, impossible to remove. Then she left, leaving me there, shaking. 10 more days. In 10 days, we would be finished. Mr. Miller, another flower delivery from Ms. Vanderbilt. She had been sending them for 3 days straight. I never looked at them, just gave a curt nod. Leaning on my cane, I packed my few belongings, ready to check myself out. When I opened the door, I saw the entire hallway was filled with flowers. A sea of white roses, just like the ones she'd been sending. My heart skipped a beat. How did she know I was leaving today? But my delusion was shattered by the conversation of 2 patients down the hall. Chloe Vanderbilt is really something else. To make Dr. Vance feel welcome, she sent flowers to every single patient and had his entire floor redecorated. Must be costing her tens of thousands a day. Must be nice to be rich and in love. And white roses for true love. How romantic. Shoo, keep your voice down. Her husband is a patient on this floor too. I steadied myself against the wall, my face ashen. A hollow, self-mocking laugh escaped my lips. A collective gasp drew my attention to the atrium below. The main lobby was also a sea of white roses. And in the very center stood Chloe and Dylan. "Dylan, will you stay with me always?" Chloe said, moving closer to him, her words a tired cliché. He smiled and took the ring box she offered as the crowd around them burst into applause. Then, Chloe leaned in and kissed him. I unconsciously touched my own lips. How long had it been since I'd kissed her? A little over 1,000 days, and I couldn't even remember the last time. With me, it seemed Chloe didn't just have selective mutism. She had an extreme aversion to being touched. The world felt like a ridiculous stage play. My selectively mute ex-wife, publicly proposing to her first love. It was clear now. The only real sin was not being the one she loved. I spent the rest of the day taking care of business. I bought a new phone, filed a police report, gave my statement, finalized my grad school applications with a consultant, and booked a flight to Boston for 10 days from now. My plan was to get treatment for my hand while I was in school. It was 7 p.m. by the time I got back to the condo. The place was half-packed and covered in a thick layer of dust. I knew Chloe hadn't been back once. I grabbed something to eat and got back to clearing out the rest of her things. The lock clicked and the door opened. It was Chloe. Her face went cold when she saw me packing her boxes. She seemed to sense something different about me but couldn't place it. Without a word, she strode into the bedroom. I heard the sounds of drawers being thrown open, and then she stormed out, tearing through the boxes I'd already packed, scattering clothes and belongings everywhere. "What are you doing?" I demanded, moving toward her, but she shoved me and I fell. "The recorder?" she asked, her voice sharp. How long had it been since she'd last spoken to me? "What recorder?" "I don't have it," I said, glancing down at my right hand. Fresh blood was starting to seep through the bandages. More frantic searching. I looked up and saw a side of Chloe I'd never seen before. She was completely frantic, her forehead beaded with sweat, her silk scarf askew, her designer dress smudged with dust. "Where is the recorder?" she demanded, stopping to glare at me. "I told you, I haven't seen it," I shot back with a firmness that surprised even me. I used my left hand to push myself up, staggering to my feet until I was looking her straight in the eye. She seemed to be at a loss, her frustration mounting. Her fists clenched and unclenched, and then with a furious cry, she swept a porcelain vase off a side table. It shattered on the floor. "Where is my recorder?" she repeated, stepping towards me, her voice relentless. Blood was dripping from a cut on her hand. I had never seen her so unhinged. I summoned my courage and pushed her away, trying to limp out of the room. Suddenly, a voice filled the air. "My name is Chloe Vanderbilt. I'm 18, and I want to tell Dylan I love him. Dylan, it's our 2-year anniversary today. I hope we can be together forever. Dylan, we've been together 3 years now, and my wish is still the same, to be with you always. Dylan, why did you leave? Dylan, I'm getting married." Chloe had stumbled into a pile of boxes, knocking something loose. A small, old digital recorder had rolled out, its red light blinking as it played back its recordings. It was a collection of audio love letters from Chloe to Dylan, starting from when they were teenagers. "Goodbye, Dylan. I hope I see you again. Goodbye." The recorder seemed to be broken, stuck repeating that final word over and over. Chloe scrambled to pick it up, frantically trying to turn it off, but the buttons were jammed. I stopped in my tracks. I slowly turned and leaned against the entryway cabinet, tears streaming down my face. "Chloe," I asked, my voice breaking, "if you didn't love me, why did you marry me?" Her throat worked, as if she was trying to form words, but nothing came out. A moment later, a text appeared on my phone. "Ethan, please, let me explain. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm, to push down the wave of pain rising in my chest. Just go, I said. Take all your things and get out of my home. Chloe pressed her lips into a thin line, clutching the endlessly repeating recorder in her hand, and walked past me out the door. I didn't see Chloe again in the days that followed. Before my flight, though, I had to go back to the hospital to have the dressing on my hand changed. In the main lobby, a new portrait had been added to the wall of specialists, Dr. Dylan Vance. I glanced at his bio and froze when I saw the title of his most recent publication. It was my senior thesis from college. I checked the name and the publication date again and again. It was mine. "Hello, Mr. Miller." A man's voice snapped me back to reality. I turned. It was Dylan. "Got a minute?" he asked, raising an eyebrow and gesturing toward a nearby seating area. I looked at him. He was the picture of perfection. His white lab coat was perfectly pressed, and every strand of his hair was meticulously styled in place. Dylan smirked. "You know, when the court called that day, Chloe didn't answer." "I did." He gave a mock pouty smile. "I had no idea that silence would be taken as consent for the divorce." "You're not mad at me, are you, Ethan?" I was silent for a moment, then shook my head. "No, I'm the one who filed. A clean break is better for everyone." He didn't seem to care about my answer, plowing ahead. "And about that car accident, it was a total fluke. I've already apologized to Chloe, and she promised me she'd take care of it. I'm sure you're not the type to hold a grudge, right?" I just stared at him, saying nothing. I knew there was nothing I could do on my own. It was no surprise that Chloe would protect him. "You saw the paper, I assume," Dylan went on, his voice low. "It's exactly what you think. Chloe knew I needed a publication, so she gave it to me. Thanks for looking after her for the past 3 years, by the way. I was busy with my research in London, couldn't exactly be by her side. I only found out later that my leaving was what triggered her mutism." He rubbed his forehead as if troubled by the thought, but then a smug smile spread across his face. "Still, I've only been back a short while, and look how much better she's already gotten." I looked down, stirring the cup of coffee a nurse had handed me. "Are you here to gloat about how much Chloe loves you?" I put the spoon down and drained the bitter black coffee in one swallow. "Don't bother. I don't care about Chloe's past, present, or future. But let's get one thing straight. I left her. Ethan Miller is the one who walked away." I ignored him, stood up, and walked toward the billing office. Ethan, Dylan, clearly unhappy with my dismissal, got up and grabbed my injured right hand. A sharp pain shot up my arm, and I violently shook him off. He stumbled backward with a crash. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a familiar figure rush forward. It was Chloe. She was already kneeling, helping Dylan up after he'd fallen against a railing. "Chloe, I'm fine." "Really?" Dylan said, trying to sound tough. "I just lost my footing." I hesitated for a second, then decided to just walk away. But before I could, Chloe slapped me across the face. The sharp crack echoed down the hallway, and every head turned in our direction. Even Chloe seemed surprised by her own action. "Apologize," she said. I held my stinging cheek, a bitter laugh rising in my throat. Every single time she had spoken to me, it had been about him. What was so wrong with me? Not that it mattered anymore. "Chloe, how could you hit him?" Dylan said, playing the peacemaker. "It's fine. He doesn't need to apologize." Chloe looked like she was about to argue, but Dylan smoothly took her arm, his voice gentle, and just like that, the ice around her began to thaw. I used to believe that if I was just patient enough, Chloe would eventually come around. I thought if I just read enough medical journals, I could find a way to cure her. I had so many fantasies, but the reality was that Chloe was never mine to begin with. My flight to Boston was at 4 p.m. At noon, the official divorce decree arrived in my email. From that moment on, I was a completely free man. A text from Chloe came in. "Meet me at the cafe downstairs from my office. 1 o'clock. After a moment's thought, I decided to go. I arrived early, with my suitcase and the printed divorce decree in hand. I waited from 1 to 1:30, and then until 2. She was the one who had asked to meet, and she was the one who stood me up. I sent several texts which went unanswered. Finally, a 2-word reply, "In a meeting." "Hello, is this Mr. Miller?" A voice said over the phone. "This is Ms. Vanderbilt's assistant. She asked me to let you know that something urgent has come up, and she won't be able to make your meeting." I didn't respond. I had expected as much. "Ms. Vanderbilt also wanted me to inform you that she has arranged a consultation with a top hand surgeon in London and will cover all your travel and medical expenses. She has also transferred $2 million to your account to cover your living expenses." I stood up, phone in one hand, suitcase in the other. The words, "I don't need it," died on my lips. Across the street, at another outdoor cafe, sat Chloe and Dylan, laughing together. He was smiling down at her, and she looked utterly blissful as she leaned her head on his shoulder. The afternoon sun was beautiful, casting a golden glow over them. I don't think I'd ever seen Chloe look that happy in the 3 years we were married. I quickly shut down that line of thought. Mr. Miller, are you still there? The assistant's voice chirped. I hung up, paid my bill, and walked out of the cafe. I walked straight across the street to their table. I took the divorce decree I'd been gripping in my hand and slammed it down between them. The impact sent coffee and juice splashing across the table, soaking the front of Dylan's shirt. Chloe grabbed my wrist, but she didn't even look at the papers. Her eyes were on Dylan. She immediately rushed to his side with a napkin and began dabbing at his clothes. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I stood there for a moment in silence, then turned and hailed a cab to the airport. The announcement was already playing. Final boarding call for Flight 718 to Boston at Gate T1. Just then, a text from Chloe came through. "Ethan, I think you owe Dylan an apology." Without a second thought, I blocked her number. I handed my passport and boarding pass to the gate agent. He glanced at my documents, then back at me. "Looks like your marital status was just updated today?" he asked. After my bag was tagged, I looked up and smiled. "That's right, I'm divorced." The air conditioning on the plane was blasting. I asked the flight attendant for a blanket, wrapped myself up tightly, and fell into a deep sleep before we even took off. I had only one thought in my mind. "Goodbye, Chloe." "Ms. Vanderbilt, I'm calling about the flight to London I booked for Mr. Miller," her assistant said. The airline confirmed he never checked in, and he's not answering his phone. Chloe sat at her desk, staring at a mountain of paperwork. Since Dylan's return to Chicago, her productivity had plummeted, and the board members were getting restless. It had been almost 10 days since she'd last seen me, since that ugly scene at the cafe. Chloe knew I wouldn't be the one to apologize, and she knew she had been unfairly biased towards Dylan. She had left me alone, thinking that arranging my treatment in London would give all three of us some much-needed space. Also, the assistant continued, "The $2 million you transferred to Mr. Miller's account was returned. The bank said that since you're now divorced, he's no longer authorized on the Vanderbilt Family Trust, so they can't process a transfer of that size." Chloe froze. The pen in her hand dragged a thick, black line across the document she was signing, tearing the paper. She let out a soft hiss of frustration and typed a message to her assistant. "What do you mean, divorced?" The assistant was taken aback. "Our legal department received the final decree about 10 days ago. They've already updated your marital status in the company records." "You didn't know? Bring me the file," Chloe typed back. A few minutes later, the divorce decree was in her hands. It was a simple 2-page document. She looked at the date it was filed, the day of our fight in the condo. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts, finally having to use the search bar to find my name. She sent a text. "When did you file?" The message failed to send. A red exclamation point appeared next to it, with a notification, "Message failed. This person has blocked you." The assistant watched as a series of emotions flickered across Chloe's face, before she finally just stared at her phone, stunned. Chloe sighed, a look of resignation on her face. "Find out where Ethan is," she typed to her assistant, before turning back to her work. "Chloe, you promised you'd come with me to that dinner with the pharma reps tonight," Dylan whined. "I have to work," Chloe replied, giving him a perfunctory kiss before turning back to the contracts she was reviewing for an upcoming negotiation. "Chloe, when am I going to meet your parents? My mom and dad are flying in from London next week, and they're dying to meet you. Dad said if everyone gets along, he wants to start making wedding plans." Dylan snatched the contract out of her hands, holding it behind his back to force her to look at him. Chloe was forced to look at him, the close proximity overwhelming her with the scent of his strong cologne. She was sensitive to perfumes and let out a small sneeze. A flicker of annoyance crossed Dylan's face before he smoothed it over, leaning in closer. "Chloe, I don't want to wait anymore. You're divorced now. There's nothing stopping us from being together." At his words, Chloe's hand, which was reaching for a tissue, froze in midair. She turned to look at him, her gaze sharp. "How did you know I was divorced?" Dylan froze, a flicker of panic in his eyes. I heard your assistant talking about it," he stammered. Chloe felt a surge of irritation. She knew her assistant was the soul of discretion and would never gossip about her private life. She didn't believe him. "Was it you?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Who answered the call from the court?" A flash of resentment crossed Dylan's face. "Chloe, you told me you loved me. Why are you getting angry at me over him?" "I didn't know it was the court calling," I answered, "and then I remembered your condition, and I didn't think it was my place to speak for you. How was I supposed to know that not responding meant you agreed to the divorce?" He leaned against her desk, his voice softening into a whine as he tried to kiss her. He moved behind her chair and started rubbing her shoulders. "I'm sorry, Chloe. It was my fault. Please don't be mad at me." Chloe sighed, instinctively pulling away from his touch. She opened her mouth to speak, but the cloying scent of his cologne made her throat tighten. She resorted to her phone. "We can talk about meeting your parents after this project is finished." Afterwards, she sent a text to her assistant. "Schedule a meeting with Judge Miller for me, here at the office." The next morning, Chloe went to the Vanderbilt Medical Center for her regular speech therapy appointment. "Ms. Vanderbilt," her doctor said, "your selective mutism has shown some improvement, but it's limited. I recommend continuing our sessions. Your ex-husband, Mr. Miller, sent me a very detailed email a while back outlining your condition over the past 3 years. It was quite insightful. Based on his notes, I'd like to start a new course of treatment, a completely new approach tailored to you." Chloe immediately typed a refusal. "That won't be necessary." She added another line. "Please forward all my files to Dr. Vance. He will be handling my treatment from now on." After leaving the clinic, Chloe paused. Instead of heading for the exit, she turned and walked toward Dylan's office. Before she reached the door, she could hear his voice booming from inside. "I told you it's Mr. Vanderbilt now. Stop calling me Dr. Vance." She frowned but didn't go in. "The hospital administrator just called," a nurse said, her voice timid. "You have a board meeting at 4, and you're scheduled for a surgery at 5. Through the crack in the door, Chloe could see Dylan admiring himself in a hand mirror, his desk littered with bottles of cologne and hair gel. "Also," the nurse added timidly, "the chief of staff wanted to remind you of the hospital's dress code. Surgeons aren't permitted to wear cologne or hair products in the operating room." Dylan slammed his hand on the desk. "Do you have any idea whose name is on the front of this building? It's Vanderbilt. What did I just tell you to call me? I'm Mr. Vanderbilt now. So whose rules do you think matter more here, mine or the chief of staff's?" The nurse flinched and clutched her clipboard to her chest. She quickly opened the door to leave and came face to face with Chloe. "Ms. Vanderbilt," she stammered. Dylan spun around, his expression a mixture of surprise and annoyance. He quickly strode to the door, shoved the nurse out into the hallway, and then turned back to Chloe, his face breaking into a wide smile. "Chloe, you came to see me." He playfully poked her cheek, then took her hand to lead her inside. The overpowering scent of his cologne was making her nauseous. "You shouldn't," she began, but he cut her off, pressing her against the door. Okay, I get it," he whispered. "I'll tone it down." He leaned in to kiss her, but she turned her head at the last second, his lips only brushing her cheek. He stiffened. "What, are you mad at me now?" "Fine, I'll go apologize to her," he said, pretending to head for the door. Chloe pulled him back. She started to say, "Next time," but he cut her off again. "I get it, Chloe, don't worry. I'll be more discreet from now on." Chloe felt a tightness in her chest, the words she wanted to say trapped inside her. She took out her phone and typed, "My medical files should have been transferred to you by now. I want you to handle my next round of therapy." A flicker of impatience crossed Dylan's eyes as he read the message. "Selective mutism? But you're almost completely better. Chloe, all you need to do is spend more time with me. Once we're married, you'll be fine. You don't need therapy." He pulled his passport from a drawer and waved it at her. "How about you take me to Thailand next week instead?" Chloe typed again. "I need one more round of treatment." Dylan's patience snapped. He pulled his hand away and turned his back on her. "I said you don't need it. I have a medical degree from a top university. Why won't you trust me? Besides, you've gotten so much better since I came back, haven't you? The best thing for this kind of psychological issue is to relax and have fun. I'm sick of this job anyway. It's so boring." Staring at his back, for some reason, Chloe thought of me. Sensing her silence, Dylan turned back around. "Fine," he said, his tone softening. "I'll go with you to every single one of your appointments. Okay? I'll be by your side until you're completely cured." But the image that flashed in her mind was of my smiling face. After a long pause, she pushed down her unease and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "Just rest," she managed to say, each word a struggle. Her throat felt tight, and a heavy feeling settled in her chest. Later, Chloe called the judge's office. She opened her mouth to speak, but that same tightness seized her throat. She couldn't make a sound. After a few moments of silence, the judge on the other end said, "Hello? I'm sorry, I have to take another call," and hung up. Chloe stared at her phone screen. It was real. We were really divorced. I slept for over 10 hours, only waking up when the captain announced our descent. The cabin was cold, but the wool blanket I was wrapped in was warm and comfortable. "Ladies and gentlemen, "We are beginning our final descent into Boston Logan International Airport," the flight attendant announced. I sat up and turned on my phone, connecting to the in-flight Wi-Fi. A flurry of notifications chimed, and I quickly silenced my phone, murmuring an apology to the passenger next to me. I had a few missed calls from Boston area codes and a new friend request on Instagram. Nothing from Chloe. I let out a small, imperceptible sigh of relief. The lurch of the plane touching down was the moment it finally felt real. A new life was beginning. My phone rang. Mr. Miller, my realtor from Chicago, said, "Are you sure you want to list the condo for $2.5 million? "Yes," I replied. "I need the cash. Sell it as quickly as you can. I'm willing to go lower on the price." I hung up and went back to cleaning my new apartment in Boston. The condo was the last thing connecting me to Chloe, and I wanted it gone. In a week, I would be starting my 4-year MD-PhD program at Harvard Medical School, focusing on my specialties, psychiatry and cardiothoracic surgery. The Instagram request was from a professor in the admissions office, a friendly woman named Dr. Evelyn Reed. I accepted her request and sent a quick message. She replied with my class schedule, housing information, and other orientation materials. She also had good news about my hand. The university's teaching hospital would provide me with the most advanced treatment at a reduced rate. She told me they'd recently treated a case even more severe than mine, and the patient had made a full recovery in 6 months. They expected I'd be back to normal in 2 to 4 months. Everything was falling into place, just as I'd hoped. I hadn't heard from Chloe again. That was her way, cold and proud. At first, she probably thought I was just giving her the silent treatment. But even after she knew the truth, there was no reason for us to be in touch. The weather in Boston was beautiful. Sunlight streamed through the clean windows of my apartment, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I found myself humming. Just then, my phone rang. It was Dr. Reed. "Ethan, we were reviewing your application materials, and we found something concerning. The undergraduate thesis you submitted appears to have been published under the name of a Dylan Vance, from a medical college in London. Were you aware of this?" My mood instantly soured. "Yes, I'm aware," I said. "My ex-wife gave him my research, but I have all my original notes, outlines, and the raw data from my fieldwork. I can prove it's my work." Dr. Reed sounded relieved. "That's wonderful news. If you can email me all of that documentation, the university will initiate an academic misconduct arbitration on your behalf. You should have your authorship restored within a couple of weeks." I thanked her profusely and hung up, immediately opening my laptop to gather the files. The throbbing in my right hand forced me to take frequent breaks, but I was filled with a sense of elation. Leaving Chloe was the best decision I had made in 3 years. After 2 straight weeks of working around the clock, Chloe suffered a cardiac arrest on a flight to Thailand. Dylan was sitting next to her in business class, completely absorbed in a movie. Chloe felt a crushing weight on her chest, a suffocating feeling that spread through her entire body. It felt like a stone was lodged in her throat. She tried to reach for Dylan, but her arm fell limply to her side. Even without headphones, he was so engrossed in his film that he didn't notice she had passed out. In the moments before she lost consciousness, the feeling of despair was even worse than the physical pain. And for some reason, as her eyes closed, the images that flashed through her mind were of her life with me. Me keeping the condo spotless. Me cooking her carefully planned, nutritious meals every day. Me scheduling her workouts, managing her calendar, even helping her with paperwork from the office. As her consciousness faded, she couldn't even summon the strength to smile. The absurdity of it all struck her. She was a billionaire, and for the past 2 weeks, she'd been living on takeout. Then, everything went black. When she came to, surrounded by a hazy white light, Chloe felt no joy. "Ms. Vanderbilt's condition is critical," a doctor was saying. "The preliminary diagnosis is cardiac arrest due to extreme exhaustion, but given her history, it could also be a complication of her selective mutism. She's lucky the flight attendant found her when she did. Any longer and she would have been brain dead." Chloe's consciousness was still fuzzy. She tried to move her fingers, but couldn't. Strangely, she felt no pain, only an overwhelming exhaustion, a desire to just let go. That, and a hollow ache in her chest. She still hadn't heard Dylan's voice. "Mr. Vance, are you Ms. Vanderbilt's next of kin?" the doctor asked. The question was met with silence. Chloe waited, but no answer came. "Ms. Vanderbilt will require round-the-clock care. The next 72 hours are critical, and someone needs to be with her at all times in case of another incident. If her vitals stabilize after 3 days, we recommend chartering a medical flight back to the States." 3 days. Dylan's voice was laced with irritation. "But I have an island-hopping tour booked for today." The doctor sighed. "Mr. Vance, This is a life or death situation. The islands will still be here when Ms. Vanderbilt has recovered. Can't I just hire a private nurse for her? Dylan asked, a note of triumph in his voice, as if he'd found the perfect solution. Chloe felt herself sinking into a bottomless pit. That same bitter, hollow feeling washed over her again. This was the man she loved. When had he stopped loving her? Suddenly, the heart monitor beside her began to shriek. She's crashing. Her vitals are unstable. Get me a crash cart now. With a loud crack, the defibrillator paddles sent a jolt through Chloe's body, lifting her off the bed. Chloe saw a flash of white light, then felt herself slam back down onto the mattress. It happened again and again. She felt as if all the blood in her body was rushing to her head, which felt like it was about to explode. Then, once again, she was plunged into darkness. When Chloe woke up again, her throat felt like it was on fire. She tried to cough, but couldn't. Her lips were parched. Her assistant, seeing her stir, slowly raised the head of the bed so she could sit up. Slowly, Ms. Vanderbilt, her assistant said, holding a cup of water to her lips. Chloe took a small sip, but swallowing was a monumental effort. She pointed to her throat, trying to show her assistant where it hurt. Is it your throat, Ms. Vanderbilt? I'll get the doctor, the assistant said, rushing out of the room so quickly she forgot to use the call button. Chloe's eyes scanned the room. She was still in Thailand. Dylan was nowhere to be seen. Her assistant must have been flown in after she'd crashed the second time. The doctor and a nurse soon followed the assistant into the room. After a quick examination, the doctor sighed with relief. You're out of immediate danger for now, but you're not out of the woods yet. You'll need to stay here for observation. The low oxygen levels on a commercial flight could trigger another cardiac event. Chloe glanced at her assistant, who immediately understood. Ms. Vanderbilt is indicating that her throat is bothering her. She'd like you to take another look. Before the doctor could reply, Dylan's voice boomed from the doorway. Her throat is fine. I examined it myself just last week. Everyone turned. Dylan stood there, wearing a large gold watch and sunglasses, dressed head to toe in resort wear and carrying a handful of designer shopping bags. You're finally awake, he exclaimed, pushing past the medical staff to get to her bedside. I was waiting, and you just wouldn't wake up. I can't believe you woke up the minute I stepped out. I'm so happy. He threw his arms around her, the force of his hug sending a sharp pain through her chest. She coughed, spitting up a mouthful of blood onto the white sheets. Dylan shrieked at the sight of the blood and jumped back, a look of disgust on his face. Seeing the looks on everyone's faces, he gave a weak, embarrassed laugh. Sorry, that just caught me off guard. He slowly approached the bed again and reached for a tissue to clean her up. Chloe's expression turned to ice, and she turned her head away. Dylan's hand froze awkwardly in midair. Her assistant quickly took the tissue from him and began cleaning the blood from the sheets. Mr. Vance, perhaps you should wait outside while the doctor examines Ms. Vanderbilt, the assistant suggested gently. What's that supposed to mean? Dylan snapped, his anger flaring. Are you implying I'm not a real doctor? The assistant simply put a hand on his chest and pushed him out into the hall, locking the door behind him. Dylan was furious. He rattled the doorknob, and when it wouldn't open, he started pounding on the door. You can't keep me out of there. I'm a doctor too. I'm her fiancé. Who the hell are you? Just you wait. The second she's better, I'm having her fire you. Chloe, open this door. The review of my thesis attribution was scheduled quickly. In 3 days, a 3-person arbitration panel, consisting of Dylan's former thesis advisor from London and 2 professors from Harvard, would convene. They would review all the evidence and make a final ruling. On the day of the hearing, I dressed in my best suit and arrived early. Dr. Reed was already there. The members of the panel arrived shortly after, but there was no sign of Dylan. We have been unable to reach Mr. Vance at the number he provided, a university official announced. We also sent a formal invitation by mail, which has gone unanswered. As per the regulations, we will now proceed with the hearing. The official then asked us to present our documents. I submitted my original thesis, along with all my research notes, drafts, and citation logs. Since Dylan had not submitted anything, the university had gathered his coursework and other papers from his time in London for comparison. The verdict was swift and unanimous. The panel has determined that authorship of the thesis in question belongs to Mr. Ethan Miller, the lead professor announced. Furthermore, with the full cooperation of his former institution, Mr. Dylan Vance's master's degree will be rescinded, and the publication will be officially retracted. The room erupted in applause. Dr. Reed was beaming and gave me a huge hug. My hands were shaking, and I could feel a blush creeping up my neck. My eyes welled up with tears. Thinking she had overstepped, she quickly pulled back. Oh, I'm so sorry, she said, I was just so happy for you. I shook my head. No, it's okay. I just never thought it would be this easy. Back home, my family always taught me to be agreeable, to not make waves. I thought if I trailed off, then collected myself. It doesn't matter. The past is the past. What matters is now. I'm just so happy. It was always my work, but I never thought I'd actually see justice done. Her eyes were shining. Yes, she said, there is justice, and you deserved to get the credit for your work. When I got home, there was an official email of congratulations from my undergraduate university. I logged onto the medical journal's website, and my name was already listed as the author of the paper. I was so ecstatic I felt like dancing. It felt like my new life had truly begun the moment the divorce was final. Before I was married, I lived for my family. After, I lived for Chloe. In 3 years, I don't think I ever once cooked a meal just for myself. Divorce and rebirth, they really were the same thing. After nearly 2 weeks of recovery in Thailand, Chloe chartered a flight back to Chicago. Her heart condition had stabilized, but her selective mutism had returned with a vengeance. She could barely manage a single word, even to Dylan. The day after she regained consciousness, Chloe was already back to work. Dylan, meanwhile, continued his vacation, shopping, island hopping, and clubbing. He even rented a beach house. He was less than pleased when Chloe told him she'd booked a flight home. Back to the grind already? He asked on the plane. Chloe, can I quit my job? Chloe instinctively reached for his hand, but then stopped herself, picking up her water glass instead. She typed on her phone. That's your decision to make. Then let's get married as soon as we get back to Chicago, okay? He pressed, moving closer. My parents already sent over all my paperwork. I want to make it official. The overpowering scent of his cologne was giving her a headache. His words made her freeze. She had just remembered that when we were married, I had been legally added to her family's records. She had no idea what my legal status was now. Her silence clearly annoyed him. He frowned, his voice taking on a sarcastic edge. Chloe, you won't marry me, you won't introduce me to your parents. Are you just playing games with me? You said you wanted to marry me before I left for London. Now I'm back, you're single, and you won't even talk about it. Is it because you're still in love with Ethan? Now that he's gone, you're starting to regret it. His words struck a nerve. Without looking at him, she stared at the empty glass on her tray table. Was he right? She had been thinking about me a lot lately. Did she miss me? Did she still care? If I had still been there, would I have let her work herself to the point of collapse? Would I have noticed something was wrong sooner? Would she have had to be revived twice in the hospital? Would her mutism have gotten worse? A loud crash snapped Chloe back to the present. She turned to see Dylan standing over her, his face contorted with rage. A shattered glass lay at his feet, water pooling on the carpet. The flight attendants froze, unsure of what to do. Chloe, say something, he roared, his voice echoing through the quiet cabin. Why won't you answer me? Do you love me or not? Say it. His face was a mask of fury, his features twisted with rage. In that moment, the man in front of her was a complete stranger, no longer the caring person she remembered. She didn't know what had gone so wrong. The sharp crack of a slap echoed through the cabin. Chloe raised a hand to her stinging cheek, her eyes wide with disbelief as she stared at Dylan. He looked down at his own hand, a flicker of panic in his eyes. The only sound was the hiss of the cabin's air conditioning. Everyone was frozen in shock. Chloe, I'm so sorry, he stammered, his lips trembling. I didn't mean to. I was just so frustrated. You wouldn't answer me. I didn't know what was wrong. He moved to embrace her, but her assistant stepped between them. Chloe felt an unbearable tightness in her chest. She gave a weary wave of her hand, and several bodyguards appeared, escorting a still protesting Dylan to another part of the plane. Her heart was hammering in her chest, her breathing shallow and rapid. And then she fainted. When Chloe woke up again, she was back in a hospital. The medical equipment surrounding her was even more advanced this time, the constant beeping giving her a headache. She reached up to silence one of the machines, but a wave of nausea washed over her. She gripped the bed rail, taking deep, ragged breaths until the feeling passed. From the hallway, she could hear arguing, then the sharp sound of another slap, followed by Dylan's enraged shouting. But this time, Chloe felt nothing. She couldn't quite place the emotion, or lack thereof. Was she too tired to care, or did she simply not care anymore? How dare you lay a hand on my daughter? It was her mother's voice. She was perfectly fine before she left for Thailand with you. She had a cardiac arrest on the flight there, and another one on the way back. Do you have any idea how close she came to dying? If anything happens to her, I will personally destroy you. Chloe knew her mother had never approved of Dylan, and now she had all the ammunition she needed. Dylan's angry shouts subsided into pathetic whimpers. Mrs. Vanderbilt, I'm so sorry, I was wrong. It was just Chloe wouldn't talk to me, and I panicked. I thought she didn't love me anymore. Please, forgive me. Chloe slowly pushed herself up, took a sip of water from the glass on her nightstand, and rinsed her mouth. She was starting to feel more like herself, but her throat still felt raw and swollen. Even swallowing water felt like there was a lump in it. Hearing the noise, someone threw open the door. It was Dylan, still in the clothes he'd worn on the plane. He must have come straight here after they landed. He rushed into the room, stumbled, and fell to his knees before her, his hands clutching at her hospital gown. Chloe, please let me explain, he begged. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know you were that sick. Selective mutism doesn't cause cardiac arrest. I'm a doctor. I know these things. His hand trembled as he reached for her face. Chloe, please just say something. I know you still love me, right? Chloe stared at him, her face a blank canvas. Maybe it wasn't that she couldn't speak. Maybe she just didn't want to. Her mother stood in the doorway, watching, waiting for her to make a choice. Chloe looked past him, to the assistant standing behind her mother, and gave a slight nod. Immediately, 2 large bodyguards entered the room and pulled Dylan to his feet. No, don't take me away, he screamed as they dragged him out. Chloe, you can't do this to me. I came back for you. Don't you remember what you promised me 3 years ago? His voice faded as they hauled him down the hall. A few moments later, a doctor came in and handed her a medical report. Chloe stared at it in disbelief. Ms. Vanderbilt, the doctor said gently, we've determined that your speech difficulties are not just related to your selective mutism. You have a tumor on your larynx. It's likely that the stress and exhaustion of the past few weeks have caused it to grow rapidly. We recommend surgery to remove it as soon as possible. Chloe typed on her phone, but I have a full physical every month. Why wasn't this discovered sooner? The oncologist looked at her phone. Ms. Vanderbilt, I've reviewed your files. It's true, there was no sign of it in the past 3 years. However, it was clearly visible on last month's scans. If we had caught it then, it wouldn't have become so serious. According to the records, Dr. Vance was the one who personally reviewed those scans. As you know, he insisted on handling all of your medical care personally, so no one else looked at the results. The doctor quickly changed the subject, outlining the pre-op procedures and offering her several possible times for the surgery. Chloe's mind was reeling. She pressed her fingers to her temples. She felt so tired. It seemed like ever since Dylan had come back and I had left, her entire life had fallen apart. She let out a long, weary sigh and typed on her phone. Schedule it for tomorrow morning. Lying on the operating table, Chloe wasn't nervous. Her surgeon, on the other hand, was. Don't you worry, Ms. Vanderbilt, he said, his voice a little shaky. We'll be using the latest transoral robotic surgery. The incision will be minimal, and there will be no external scarring. Just remember, you'll be on a liquid diet for a month afterward to allow your throat to heal. Chloe nodded. A nurse helped her turn onto her side. She felt the cold prick of the anesthesia in her spine, a spreading coolness, and then her consciousness began to fade. She had a dream. She was back on the day we first met. Dylan had just left for London without a word. Back then, he hadn't known who she really was, and she had admired what she thought was his courage, his willingness to sacrifice everything for his dreams. Hello, I'm Ethan Miller. She looked up and saw me as I was 3 years ago. Back then, she had been filled with contempt, looking down on what she assumed was just another spoiled rich kid. This is the Miller's eldest son, her mother had said, beaming. He's a brilliant young man. He's already completed his pre-med at Northwestern and has been accepted into several top medical schools. Northwestern Memorial has already offered him a position. Aren't you planning on going to medical school, Mr. Miller? Chloe had asked, her interest piqued. In all the time they'd known each other, she had never once asked what I studied, where I went to school, or what my plans for the future were. I had said, looking straight at her. But I like you, Chloe, and sometimes you have to give up one thing to get another. Right now, I want to choose you. Chloe's eyes snapped open. She tried to sit up, but a nurse gently pushed her back down. More anesthesia, quick, she heard the surgeon say. Why is she waking up? Her eyes were wet with tears as she slipped back into unconsciousness. She couldn't remember what I had really said 3 years ago, or if I had said that at all. She had never known how much I loved her, how much I had given up for her, and her last conscious thought was that she had to get me back. Ms. Vanderbilt, you can't get on a plane yet, her assistant pleaded, pacing anxiously by her hospital bed. Even if we know Mr. Miller is at Harvard, you have to think about your health. The doctor said you can't fly for at least another month. After what happened on the flight from Thailand, you can't take that risk. Chloe typed on her phone. Book me a flight to Boston for next Monday. She added another line. And find out where Ethan's legal residence is now. The assistant looked uncomfortable. After the divorce, Mr. Miller immediately filed to have his legal status changed online. I no longer have access to his records, so I don't know where he's registered now. It's possible he's back under his family's name. Also, the condo you signed over to him, he's already sold it. Other than his old bank account, we have no way of contacting him. Chloe didn't type anything else, and her assistant remained silent. Just then, there was a knock at the door, and before anyone could answer, Dylan walked in. He looked terrible. In just a few days, he had become gaunt and pale, with dark circles under his eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. This time, Chloe didn't even have to give a signal. Her assistant immediately blocked his path. Mr. Vance, now is not a good time. Ms. Vanderbilt needs her rest. Dylan bit his lip. Chloe, please don't shut me out. I know I was wrong. Please, just forgive me. A look of pure annoyance crossed Chloe's face. Seeing it, Dylan began to panic. Chloe, that paper you gave me, my old advisor from London called. There was an academic arbitration. They gave the credit to Ethan. They've revoked my authorship and my degree. His voice was trembling with fear. Hearing him say this, Chloe was reminded of her own role in the deception, and a fresh wave of guilt washed over her. Now the hospital is going to fire me, he continued, his voice cracking. But if you just say the word, they'll let me stay. Please, Chloe, just talk to them for me. For old time's sake. His knees were shaking. He looked at Chloe's impassive face, and then, with a loud thud, he dropped to his knees. Chloe, I'm begging you, just give me one more chance. Chloe looked down at him, and her expression softened almost imperceptibly. She gave a tiny nod, then looked away. Her assistant understood immediately and called security. Dylan's sobs could be heard all the way down the hall as they escorted him out. Chloe opened her phone and found the email she had sent to Dylan months ago, with my thesis attached. She was filled with remorse. She typed a message to her assistant. Make a $20 million donation to Harvard Medical School. In Ethan Miller's name, Chloe chartered a private jet to Boston, bringing with her a team of private physicians and $3 million worth of the latest medical equipment. The air in the cabin was cold, and as she watched her breath fog in front of her, she felt a heavy weight settle in her heart. The cabin was silent. With her eyes closed, she could hear her own heart beating. She had to admit it. She missed me, but she had no idea what to do or say to me after all this time. I had blocked her on everything, and the divorce decree was still in her briefcase. She didn't have the courage to contact me directly. All she could do was throw money at the problem, hoping that some grand gesture of compensation would make me change my mind about her. The 12-hour flight felt like an eternity. She tossed and turned in her spacious first-class seat, unable to sleep. Her private physician checked her vitals every hour. When the plane finally landed in Boston, it was pouring rain. Chloe was whisked through a private terminal by a team of bodyguards and into a waiting black SUV. Ms. Vanderbilt will head to the hotel first, her assistant said. As you requested, the financial donation and the equipment have all been delivered to the medical school. The equipment from the plane is being transported there now. The assistant showed Chloe the confirmation of the wire transfer. Chloe waved the phone away and smoothed her hair. She typed a message. We're not going to the hotel. We're going straight to the medical school. Call the dean and tell him I'm on my way. Should I ask the dean to have Mr. Miller meet us there? The assistant asked hesitantly. For once, Chloe paused, then typed her reply. Ask the dean to arrange a private meeting between me and Ethan. The drive from the airport to the university was only half an hour, but Chloe was so nervous her palms were sweating on the leather armrests. She didn't know if I had left to try and make her miss me, or if I was truly gone for good. She didn't know if I had any feelings left for her at all. She closed her eyes, exhausted, but the tight, uncomfortable feeling in her throat remained. The dean of the medical school was waiting for them at the main entrance, standing respectfully in the pouring rain. Ms. Vanderbilt, he said, on behalf of the entire university, thank you for your incredible generosity. Chloe barely acknowledged him, sweeping past into the building, her entourage in tow. She gave her assistant a look, who then turned to the dean. Dean, Ms. Vanderbilt is on a very tight schedule. The private meeting with Mr. Miller you discussed, where has it been arranged? The dean hesitated, a flicker of unease on his face. After a moment, he simply nodded and led the way. The meeting was to take place in one of the advanced research labs. I apologize, the dean said, his voice tight with disapproval, but we cannot compel a student to attend a non-academic meeting. In order to accommodate your request, we have scheduled a special practical lab session for Mr. Miller. Chloe ignored his tone, pushing past her bodyguards to get to the lab door. The heavy lab door had a small glass window. Just as Chloe motioned for the dean to swipe his keycard, she heard laughter from inside. It was my voice, and the voice of a young woman. A knot of panic tightened in her stomach. She couldn't remember the last time she'd heard me laugh. Chloe peered through the window. I was in a white lab coat working at a bench. Standing next to me was a woman, about a head shorter than me. We were leaning over a monitor, discussing something, our heads close together. The lab was soundproof, so Chloe couldn't hear what we were saying, only the sound of our shared laughter. From where she stood, I looked happier than she had ever seen me. She couldn't bring herself to open the door. She was terrified of what she would find. A tightness gripped her chest, and the hallway started to spin. She swayed on her feet, nearly falling backward. Her assistant, seeing her state, frantically called the medical team waiting outside. "We need an oxygen tank. Now, Ms. Vanderbilt is in distress." The commotion in the hallway caught my attention, and I glanced toward the door. Just then, Chloe shoved away the people trying to help her, snatched the keycard from the dean's neck, and swiped it, throwing the lab door open. I was startled by her sudden entrance and instinctively moved Dr. Reed behind me. Then I saw who it was. Chloe. The sight of me shielding another woman seemed to catch in her throat, and the words she had been about to say died on her lips. Our eyes met across the lab. She raised her phone and typed, "Who is she? Is she the reason you divorced me?" Chloe waved away the medical team and refused to go to a private room. She insisted that Dr. Reed leave. The heavy lab door clicked shut, leaving the two of us alone. I turned my back on her and went back to the microscope. A furious cry, and then the sound of glass shattering as Chloe swept everything off the lab bench and onto the floor. My lack of reaction seemed to stun her into silence. I stood for a moment, my hands at my sides, then slowly knelt to pick up the scattered samples. I placed the microscope back on the bench. The lens was shattered. The instrument I had cared for so meticulously was ruined. Still not getting the reaction she wanted, she grabbed my arm and pulled me toward her, shoving her phone in my face. "Answer me," the screen read. The bright screen was blinding. A surge of pure frustration went through me, and I shoved her away, breaking her grip. The force of my own push surprised me. "Chloe, I'm not a mute and neither are you," I said, my voice hard. "Your cure is back in Chicago. His name is Dylan. I've already gotten out of your way, so stop harassing me." And then it all clicked into place. I bit my lip, my own anger rising. That paper was mine. I got it back on my own merits, and you have no right to interfere. You think you can just buy your way through everything? If Dylan wants accolades, let him earn them himself. I am not his stepping stone. I was breathing heavily, my chest heaving with emotion, but Chloe was doubled over in pain, a cold sweat beading on her forehead. She reached for the lab bench to steady herself, but her legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor. She fought to stay conscious, a loud ringing in her ears. She could see my mouth moving, see the anger on my face, but she couldn't hear a word I was saying. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to ask me to come back. She wanted to ask if we could reverse the divorce. But the words wouldn't come. Felt like something was lodged in her throat. She didn't know if it was the mutism, or if her throat hadn't healed properly from the surgery. Her throat was painfully dry. A million words were stuck inside her, but only one managed to escape. "I'm sorry." She tried to pull herself up using the leg of the table, but it felt like a black hole was pulling her down. She reached her other hand out toward me. I was only a few feet away, but I might as well have been on the other side of the world. Her eyelids grew heavy. Her throat was so tight she could barely breathe. Time seemed to stop. She sat on the floor, gasping, staring at the linoleum, trying to stay conscious. The ringing in her ears intensified. The door burst open and people rushed in. Hands lifted her up, and an oxygen mask was placed over her face. Finally, she could breathe. "Where's Ethan?" Took her a long time to come to. When she did, she ripped the oxygen mask off her face and fought against the people trying to move her. "Ethan," she called out, her own voice startling her. Everyone around her froze. Chloe stiffly turned her head. The sight made her heart sink. The woman from the lab, Dr. Reed, was holding my hands, her face etched with concern. I gave her a small smile and shook my head, letting her know I was okay. Chloe had never felt a heartbreak so sharp, so clear. She was suddenly transported back to the night Dylan had left, 3 years ago. All he had left was a note, no explanation, just that he was gone. Back then, she had been a mess of emotions. Sadness, frustration, the bitter anger of being abandoned. Even when she was diagnosed with selective mutism, she hadn't been scared. She had just decided she would never trust anyone again, never engage in meaningless conversation. But now she was terrified. She hadn't heard what I'd said, but she already knew the answer. I would never choose her again. Chloe gritted her teeth and pushed her way through the crowd, stumbling toward me. It was only a few feet, but by the time she reached me, she was covered in a cold sweat. The blast of the air conditioning raised goosebumps all over her skin. She shoved Dr. Reed aside. I instinctively took a step back, my expression wary. Chloe opened her mouth, and the words finally came. "Come back," she whispered. "Come home." But I was resolute. The look in my eyes was cold, my mouth set in a hard line. "No," I said, my voice flat and final. "I refuse." We parted on the worst possible terms. Back in her hotel room, Chloe listened silently as her father yelled at her over the phone. "Are you insane, flying all over the world in your condition? I understand you've been ill, but your doctors explicitly forbade you to travel. Do you have any idea what's been going on at the company? The 2 days you were in a coma cost this company millions." Chloe listened in silence. After a long pause, she tapped the phone twice to signal she understood, then hung up. She sat on the edge of her bed for a long time, my final words echoing in her head. "I refuse." She couldn't accept it. "Ms. Vanderbilt," her assistant said, knocking before entering the room. "Your father has booked you a flight back to Chicago this afternoon." Chloe sighed, a long, weary sound, and gave a dejected wave of her hand. Back in Chicago, Chloe kept tabs on me through her donations to the university. She didn't have the courage to contact me directly. 6 months passed this way. During that time, Dylan was still employed at Vanderbilt Medical. But with his degree rescinded, it came to light that his medical license had been obtained through a fraudulent joint program, and he had never actually passed his medical boards. The hospital had no choice but to revoke his practicing privileges. Dylan tried to contact Chloe countless times over those 6 months, but she never saw him. Desperate, he resorted to bribing the hospital administrator to keep his job, but he was demoted to a physician's assistant. The following spring, Chloe's assistant burst into her office, her face alight with excitement. For the past 6 months, Chloe had buried herself in her work. She had tried to have the divorce overturned, but her appeals were repeatedly denied. "Ethan Miller is coming back to Chicago," the assistant announced. "He's been nominated for the Emerging Innovator in Medicine Award." Chloe put down the pen she was holding and looked up, her full attention on her assistant. "The award ceremony and the conference are being held at Vanderbilt Medical," the assistant continued. "He's coming back to Chicago." Chloe shot to her feet so quickly she sent a stack of papers flying off her desk. "When?" she typed on her tablet. For the past 6 months, she had been in intensive therapy. The tumor was gone and hadn't returned, but her selective mutism remained. She had no cure. But maybe, just maybe, my return would be the cure she needed. "Next week," the assistant replied. "Should I have a word with the awards committee to ensure Mr. Miller wins?" Chloe's hand tightened on her phone, a slight tremor running through it. She typed, deleted, then typed again. "Sponsor the event. A $1 million grant. And I want you to personally meet with every member of the awards committee. Make my wishes clear." "Of course, Ms. Vanderbilt," the assistant said, and immediately left to make the arrangements. But Chloe's heart continued to race. It was after 11 p.m. when Chloe finally finished work. As she walked to her car in the underground garage, Dylan stepped out of the shadows. He had been waiting for her all day, and his face lit up when he saw her. "Chloe," he called out. She didn't say a word, just gave him a long, hard look and tried to get past him to her car. But he blocked her path, standing in front of the driver's side door. "Chloe, how long are you going to be mad at me?" he pleaded. She looked him over. He was dressed impeccably, as always, in a new Armani suit, a different, more expensive-looking watch on his wrist. He was standing too close, and the floral scent of his cologne was overwhelming. She felt a wave of nausea and took a step back, covering her nose with her hand. He saw the gesture and his face hardened, his hand tightening on the car's door handle. "Chloe, I may not be a practicing surgeon anymore, but I didn't waste all those years in school," he said, his voice tight with resentment. "You said it yourself, I just took a few shortcuts. You knew about it, you supported it. Why are you turning on me now?" Chloe remained silent. After a moment, Dylan continued, his voice softening. "I know I was wrong. In Thailand, all of it. It was just because I wanted to marry you so badly. I thought you would always forgive me, always love me, and I took it for granted. Please just give me one more chance. We can get back together. I'll go back to school, I'll get my license back, I'll do whatever you want. I'll personally oversee all of your therapy. You were almost completely better when I first came back. Please, just give me a chance to make it right." His voice was thick with emotion, his words tumbling out in a desperate plea. Chloe said nothing. She just looked down at her phone and sent a text. A minute later, 2 security guards appeared at either end of the garage. "We received your message, Ms. Vanderbilt." Without waiting for further instructions, they grabbed Dylan, who was still pleading, and pulled him away from the car. "Chloe, don't do this. Please, just give me one more chance," he cried, his legs giving out from under him. If the guards hadn't been holding him up, he would have fallen to his knees. "Chloe, I'm entering the competition too," he yelled as they dragged him away. "If I win, will you just talk to me? Please." At his words, Chloe's foot, which had been hovering over the accelerator, froze. She picked up her phone and typed, "Dylan, we are over. The house is in your name now. Leave me alone. And this time, you will not take anything else that belongs to Ethan." I never expected the conference to be held in Chicago. After the incident in the lab, everyone at Harvard, including Dr. Reed, knew who I was, the ex-husband of the sole heiress to the Vanderbilt pharmaceutical empire. Everyone treated me differently after that. Some avoided me, afraid of the drama. Others tried to get close to me, hoping for some advantage. But Dr. Reed treated me exactly the same as before. We never spoke of it. I knew she had feelings for me, but she never said anything, and I pretended not to notice. We remained friends. Dr. Reed had wanted to come to Chicago with me, but I told her no. This was something I had to do alone. My family and friends were still in Chicago. I couldn't let my divorce from Chloe keep me from coming home. The competition was a 2-day event, a written exam on the first day, and a practical skills assessment on the second. The day before it began, the chief of staff of Vanderbilt Medical called me and invited me to dinner. After some hesitation, I accepted. To my surprise, it wasn't just the chief of staff. Nearly every influential figure in the Chicago medical community was there. No one treated me with anything but professional respect. The entire evening was a lively discussion of a single, specific medical topic, with every professor there offering their own unique insights. It wasn't until the next day, when I saw the topic for the written exam, that I understood. The topic was laryngeal tumors, the very subject we had discussed in exhaustive detail the night before. They had given me the answers. I fell silent. It had to be Chloe's doing. She was always like that, always getting what she wanted, one way or another. I turned in a blank exam. I showed up for the practical assessment the next day, but I deliberately botched the procedure, making one clumsy mistake after another. The proctors even tried to correct me, but I ignored them. After leaving the hospital, I booked the first flight back to Boston. I was done with Chicago, but just as I was about to board, I got a call from the conference organizers. "Mr. Miller, congratulations. You've won the gold medal. We're sorry you couldn't be here for the ceremony, but we will mail the award and the prize money to your address in Boston." I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. So this was what it felt like to have success handed to you on a silver platter. "Don't bother," I said, and hung up. The entire flight back, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had become a ridiculous farce. As soon as I got back to my apartment, Dr. Reed called. "Ethan, do you remember Dylan Vance? The man who stole your thesis? He was at the conference too. I just heard he's filed a formal complaint against you, accusing you of cheating. He's posted your blank exam and the video of your practical assessment online." "Ethan, what's going on? I know your work. There's no way you would perform that poorly on a simple tumor resection." I was already looking at the post on a professional medical forum. It was laughable. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It was Chloe. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea this would happen. I'm having my team take down Dylan's posts right now. I promise this won't affect your reputation. And don't worry about the award. I'll make sure you get it. I won't let anything stand in your way. You can trust me." The whole world felt like a bad joke. Chloe kept texting me, but I didn't reply. Instead, I contacted the conference organizers and told them I was officially declining the award. I faxed them a formal statement to that effect. Sure enough, another text from Chloe came through a few minutes later. "Ethan, I am so sorry. I'm making another donation of equipment to your department, and I've already arranged for another conference to be held at the end of the year. This time, I'll make sure Dylan is nowhere near it. I promise, everything will be perfect." I stared at the message. It was utterly absurd. After a long moment, I finally replied, "I am not getting back together with you, Chloe. Please, just leave me alone." I blocked the new number. A minute later, my phone chimed again. Another new number. Still her. A suffocating feeling pressed down on me, a profound sense of helplessness. I watched as a stream of texts poured in. Apologies, promises, interspersed with bank notifications of large deposits and messages from the dean asking to speak with me. This was once everything I had ever wanted. Now it was just a burden, a suffocating, painful weight. I used to worry about how to make Chloe love me. Now all I worried about was how to get away from her. I knew blocking her was pointless. With her money and power, she could get a new number in seconds. There was no way to avoid her forever. I stood by the window for a long time. First, I texted Dr. Reed back and told her I was fine, that I had thrown the competition on purpose. Then I unblocked Chloe's number. "Book me the next flight back to Chicago," I wrote. "We need to talk." She must not have known what to say. The typing bubble appeared and disappeared for several minutes. Finally, a single word, "Okay." It was followed by a screenshot. She had chartered a private jet for me. I didn't dwell on it. All I could think about was what I would say to her, how I would make her finally understand. My goal was simple. I wanted to finish my studies and become a doctor, on my own terms. It didn't matter if it was in Chicago, Boston, or anywhere else. There was too much of the world I hadn't seen, too much I hadn't done. I couldn't waste any more of my life on her. Whatever I had felt for her in the past was gone. Chloe was waiting at the private airfield when I landed. Her assistant had already told her that Dylan had somehow gotten his hands on my blank exam and the video of my botched procedure and posted them on a prominent medical forum. When she heard the news, she felt the blood rush to her head, her hands trembling so badly she could barely hold her phone. Her mind was a chaotic mess. She couldn't understand why I would have thrown the competition. She thought maybe I was just trying to spite her, but she couldn't be sure. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a new message from me, but there was nothing. The ground crew at the private airfield had already stopped her 3 times, telling her she couldn't wait on the tarmac and had to stay in the arrivals lounge. Each time, she would retreat to her designated spot, counting the seconds until I arrived. My plane didn't land until nearly 3 in the morning, but Chloe felt no trace of fatigue. Even at that hour, the terminal was busy. She finally spotted me in the crowd. I wasn't carrying any luggage, just a single carry-on bag. It was clear I didn't plan on staying long. In less than a year, I was a completely different person. Before, I had always been listless and pale, but now, even in a simple t-shirt and jeans, I looked vibrant and healthy. I looked up and saw her, but she seemed hesitant to approach. She raised a hand in a stiff wave, forcing a smile. She mouthed the words, "Long time no see." She felt the words leave her lips, but her voice was too quiet for me to hear. I pushed through the crowd and walked toward her, my face set in a hard line. In that moment, it felt to her as if we were the only 2 people in the world. She opened her arms slightly, as if to embrace me, but I stopped a few feet away. She gave a small, self-deprecating laugh and awkwardly lowered her arms, then led me out of the airport. We got into her town car. The driver, without turning around, glanced in the rearview mirror. "Where to, Ms. Vanderbilt?" Chloe seemed flustered, unsure of where to go. After a long pause, she finally managed, "Home." The driver glanced in the mirror again, a look of shock on his face. He seemed about to ask which home she meant, but then he saw me and understanding dawned. He simply nodded and started the car. That's when I spoke. "Don't bother, Chloe. Just take me to my parents' house. It's only a half-hour drive. That should be more than enough time for our talk." The light in Chloe's eyes dimmed. She waved a hand at the driver, signaling him to do as I said. As the car merged smoothly onto the highway, I finally broke the silence. "Chloe, you know I've made my feelings clear. Why are you still doing this?" My question made her flinch. She looked panicked, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came out. She struggled for a moment before forcing out 2 words. "The award. I'm sorry." I turned to look at her. Her usual cold, arrogant demeanor was gone, replaced by an indescribable sadness. I spoke calmly. "I don't need you to do anything for me. If I want something, I'll earn it myself. 3 years ago, when I married you, I loved you. I wanted your love, so I did everything I could to earn it. Now we're divorced. I don't need your love anymore, and I'm not wasting any more of my life on it. This is my choice. It has nothing to do with how you feel about me now." I looked her straight in the eye. "Chloe, do you know what I despise most about you?" She stared at me, speechless. "Your selfishness," I continued. "For 3 years, you were trapped in your own little world, frozen in the moment Dylan left. You never saw anything I did for you, and you're still just as selfish now, trying to trap me when all I want is my freedom. Freedom is the only thing I want, and you're trying to take it away from me for your own selfish reasons. I wanted to win that award, but not by you rigging the game. Because of your selfishness, I was publicly humiliated and became a joke in the medical community. You and Dylan deserve each other. You're both fundamentally selfish. And this obsessive crusade to get me back is just more selfishness. You never once stopped to consider what I might want." Every word was a hammer blow, striking her right in the heart. The love, the regret, the deep affection she thought she felt for me, it was all stripped bare, revealed as a selfish charade. She began to doubt everything. Did she really love me? Or was it just her own stubborn pride? She looked down, and her voice was barely a whisper. Ethan, I'm sorry. The conference was my fault. She didn't try to make me stay. It was as if she knew she had no right to. We arrived at my family's home. The half-hour drive had felt both short and eternal. The car pulled up to the curb, and I unbuckled my seatbelt. Suddenly, Chloe launched herself at me, wrapping her arms around my waist in a desperate embrace, as if I were a priceless treasure she was about to lose. She buried her face in my neck, greedily inhaling my scent. Her voice was a desperate plea. Could you be my doctor? For the mutism, can we start over? Please, just give me one more chance. I placed my hands on her shoulders and gently pushed her away. This time, she didn't resist. I was almost at the front gate when she called out, her voice loud in the pre-dawn quiet. Ethan, can I call you? I stopped and turned. The sky in the east was beginning to lighten. A new day was dawning, and with the rising sun, my own spirits lifted. I looked back at her, and my voice was firm. Don't, Chloe. Don't ever contact me again.